Great to be back in Clay County. Really appreciate being here. We're excited to be able to make today's announcement. I'm joined here by our Education Commissioner, Manny Diaz. Where'd they put them? Okay, you're right over there. Okay. We also have Michael Taft, a civics teacher from Green Cove Springs Junior High, who's gonna speak, and then Brittany Bishop, a fifth grade social studies and language arts teacher from Coppergate Elementary School. And then, of course, thank you all for coming here, and we really appreciate being hosted yet again in Clay County for more education. It seems like when we're doing different things, whether it's salary increases for teachers, whether it's some of the other initiatives we've had, we always end up in Clay County doing either a bill signing or an announcement or something along those lines. Today, we're going to make an announcement of meeting an important landmark for our emphasis on getting American civics back front and center in our school system. If you think about what the purpose of the school system is, it's to give our young people a foundation so that they can lead productive lives. That's going to provide many people a pathway to go to a university. It'll provide others a pathway to go to get vocational training. Some will go to state colleges. There's a whole host of things that people will do to be able to better their lives. And, you know, you can take certain courses in high school, let's say, and you may never use some of those courses if you go in a certain direction in your life. But, you know, the one thing that you'll do, regardless of what you decide to do as a young person, everybody is going to be called upon to exercise the duties of being an American citizen. And that is something that we take seriously in Florida. We think we have a responsibility to help graduate students out of our school system with a foundation of understanding what it means to be an American, a foundation of understanding what are the principles that have made our country unique and made our country great. And that's really been a lost art, I think, over the last generation. If you look at the civic knowledge of the population, you know, it's abysmal. Less than half of U.S. adults can name the 3 branches of government. Less than 1 in 4 people can name the 5 freedoms guaranteed by the First Amendment. More than half of college graduates don't know the process for amending our nation's Constitution. There's even one study about 7 years ago in which 10% of college graduates thought that Judge Judy was a member of the U.S. Supreme Court. So we clearly have a civics problem. And what we did when I became governor is we wanted to work hard to address that. And the legislature had done some good things over the years, but we really needed to take it to the next level. So one of the things that we did, and we'll talk more about this in a minute, was we created a Civic Seal of Excellence endorsement for teachers who go above and beyond to learn about the principles that make our country great and teach those principles in the classroom. And we created a financial incentive program so that the first 20,000 teachers that went through and we kind of said it's like almost like a boot camp because there's a lot of information, that they would get a $3,000 bonus. And so we'll provide an update on how that's gone in a second. We've also established regional civics coaches and in-person teacher trainings to ensure every teacher has access to high-quality education about civics. When we did our course, people have been surveyed about some of the in-person civics professional learning series that we've done to provide them, and almost 90% of the people that went through that found it to be very, very valuable, which we're happy about. We've had a total of 4,500 teachers that have completed this endorsement program, and we'll talk about the bonuses here in a minute. But what we also wanted to do was increase access for students for things like civics and debate initiatives. So when we started this a few years ago, we had 30 school districts sign up. So basically, we created our own civics and debate initiative statewide in the state of Florida. We got a private donation of like $5 million, and we've put in some money every year to be able to keep it going. So we had 30 school districts, 59 different schools around the state in that 2020-2021 school year. That increased 21-22 school year, 45 school districts, 237 schools participating in the Civics and Debate Initiative. And then this year, our goal is to reach 67 school districts and to have 400 schools participating. We're not there yet, but we're on the pathway to be able to get there. And if you think about things like debate, and when you get into these debate things, you learn to think a little bit outside of your comfort zone. You know, you may have a situation where you're somebody that, really doesn't like firearms, right, or something like that. Well, you may be called upon to defend the Second Amendment rights of people, and you've got to look at it through a prism that maybe you didn't have, and vice versa. You know, you may be a big gun rights person as a high school student, and then maybe you have to take a side on the other way. So it gives students the ability to have their assumptions challenged. It gives them the ability to be able to put ideas out there and defend them with logic. And we need a little bit more of that. I mean, so much of the stuff that gets spewed in our political sphere nowadays is just nonsense. It's not based on sound reasoning. It's not based on evidence. It's not based on logic. But this really requires those students to get in there and achieve those skills. And I think that that's something really, really important. So we were able to do this. And we had the National Debate Championship in Florida in 2021, which was really, really good. So we've got a lot of great momentum with that, and we're going to continue to do that. And we want it to be in all 67 counties and the other school districts that we have on top of that, Florida Virtual, some of the others. We think that's very, very important. We've also established what we've called the Florida Civic Literacy Exam. And this is to ensure that students graduate from high school are having their knowledge of civics put to the test. So it doesn't mean if you don't pass it, you don't graduate, although I'd like to get to that point, but we introduced it during COVID. It was a little bit difficult, so now we've got it. But what we do with it is if you get a passing score on the civic literacy exam, then you can get a waiver from our post-secondary civic literacy requirements. And so we've said the civics is not just K-12, it's also post-secondary. So students in Florida state colleges and universities are required to demonstrate civic literacy. Now, maybe you passed the test as a high school senior, great. Maybe you've done some other things, great. Maybe you're gonna have to take a course in a state college or one of our universities, and we think that that's something that's very, very appropriate. We've also emphasized the idea that teaching people about the American experiment is important. We also want to give them a frame of reference so that they can better appreciate what we have here in America. So we're the first state that has identified a day. So we do every November 7th is a day to teach students about the victims of communist regimes throughout history. And we've created a Portraits in Patriotism video series for schools. So this series includes interviews with those who have lived under and escaped from communism. And what you find when you listen to those stories, these are people that realize that freedom is not something you can take for granted, because in many situations they were in countries that got taken over by communists and they lost their freedom and they lost everything. And so America really is kind of been the beachhead where people can go and know that they can be free. So I think it's very, very important that our students hear those stories. Our idea is we can sit there and pat ourselves on the back and act like they're unimpeachable, but they are contested in this world. I mean, you look at China and how they operate much differently than how the United States was envisioned to operate. And so these are battles that are going to continue to be fought, and we need to make sure our students understand what the stakes of these are. So this program with the teachers, where they're able to go through this, I mean, we have the syllabus, and I think it's available. People can look. I mean, you're really providing from very well-known scholars from all around the country, people here in Florida, but not limited to Florida. And you're talking about things about, okay, how did our country come into existence in the first place? How did it end up where we ended up fighting a revolution and created a constitution? And so that just didn't happen by accident. It was a logical outgrowth of a lot of the influences that our founding fathers operated under. And so when you're teaching this stuff with the teacher training, they're going into the ancients and how the founders looked to ancient Greece and Rome for guidance on things like civil virtue. They're talking about the Judeo-Christian tradition that had a profound influence on America. They talk about natural law and how that influenced people like Thomas Jefferson. They also talked about British constitutionalism. Our founders, by and large, when they were fighting the Revolution, thought that they were fighting to vindicate the rights of being Englishmen. They felt that those were being infringed upon by Parliament and King George III, and so they really looked at that. But they looked to the British Constitution as kind of their exemplar. Now, the British Constitution was unwritten. It wasn't like our document. How did we end up with a written constitution? Well, one of the reasons we did is because of the religious practices of the colonies. You had Congregationalist churches where they would get together and they would write down a covenant that would bind the congregation going in the future, and that created kind of a thought that, okay, a political covenant could be the same as a religious covenant. You write down the things that are fundamental, you bind the community to that going forward, and so our Constitution, obviously you let out the plan of government, you have Bill of Rights, things of that nature, but this was a logical step for them to go from an unwritten constitution in Britain to written constitutions here in the United States. You also talk about the different founding fathers' perspectives, and they were not uniform on everything, of course. They talk about religious liberty, how the founding fathers conceived of the role of religion in public life and government's role protecting the free exercise of religion. They do a deep dive into the Declaration of Independence. How did it get to where we were doing that? They talk about the early state constitutions, the failed Articles of Confederation. They go into talking about the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia and all the different things that were discussed and the issues that needed to be hammered out for that. They talk about the role that slavery played during the Constitutional Convention. They talk about how that was a source of tension all through the Civil War. They talk about the debate between the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists. They talk about the importance of the Bill of Rights. They explain the three different branches of government and the powers that are vested under the federal Constitution. They talk about the other articles beyond the first three articles of the Constitution. We talk about Florida. They teach about Florida's political history and the constitutions that Florida has had over the years. And then there's so many other things that they do in terms of going through. They talk about the Bill of Rights, the substantive rights, the Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment, and really provides, I think, a tremendous foundation for teachers to be able to replenish knowledge. Because, I was looking through this again, and I remember when this was being put together, and there were things that I was like, oh yeah, that's really important to do. So it's great to just refresh, and I think it's provided, and the teachers I've talked to have said, it's been really, really good to have this presented, and it's presented in a very understandable way, digestible way, and it's going to make what's provided in the classroom that much better. I mean, we can sit here and say these are standards and you got to teach civics or whatever, but we really want the teachers to be inspired by the material and be able to bring that to their students. And I think that that's what we're doing here with this. So this is a really, really great program. I've had legislators in other states come to me and say, we need to do what you're doing in Florida. Like, it's so great that you guys are taking this on, because I think people realize we do have a crisis of civic knowledge in this country right now, and that's important, I think, for any country, but it's doubly important for the United States. I mean, it's supposed to be, our motto is out of many one, and what is that kind of binds us? It's supposed to be an appreciation for the type of society that we have, where we're based on God-given rights, we're based on a constitution that has limited powers, that is supposed to be protecting our rights, and a whole bunch of things that went into that tradition. When you lose that, and when you don't have people that have that foundation at all, we're kind of just like listless vessels as a citizenry at that point. And Abraham Lincoln talked about when he first got into politics how you needed to have a civic religion in the country, and people needed to appreciate the sacrifices that people made, and they needed to appreciate what it meant to be an American. And I think it was true then, but I think it's doubly true now. We probably wouldn't be as divided as we are as a country if everybody had a solid foundation in American civics and understanding the key aspects of what it means to be an American. So we're trying to remedy that. We're trying to do something about it, and we've had great success so far, and we're looking forward to building off the success. So today, and we're going to have some of the teachers come up, but we can now report that we've already had 4,500 teachers throughout Florida that have completed our Civic Seal of Excellence endorsement program. So they have now earned $3,000 bonuses for all those 4,500 teachers. So what they had to do to achieve that bonus is participate in at least 50 hours of instruction on topics, including many of the topics that I outlined: rights and responsibilities of citizens, value of civic pride, civics participation in government, comparing the United States with other governing philosophies like communist regimes, and also understanding the philosophical underpinnings of the American Republic. The program launched in January of this year, and the first 20,000 teachers who complete this course are eligible for the $3,000 bonus. Now, we thought having, and it's available regardless of you're a civics teacher per se. And the reason why we thought that that was important is because if you're teaching literature, if you're teaching U.S. history, if you're teaching a whole host of subjects, these key principles are important to know. And these are things that can be included in lesson plans about all those different subjects. And so you do not have to be an American government teacher, a civics teacher, to participate in the program. We think there's value for all the teachers. So we knew that we were going to have it be wider than just civics teachers, but we also thought 20,000 would be more than enough to be able to do this. Well, it turns out that there have been 20,000 that have enrolled, and there's now 14,000 teachers on the waiting list to be able to participate in the program. So it's good. And we even had the first week that the registration opened, we had 10,000 teachers that signed up. So this course includes the curriculum that I mentioned, very high quality stuff, subject matter experts, original content, and that's all been developed to be consistent with Florida's revised civics and government standards. And we think it's just something that's been a huge success. So we want to build off this success. We want to make sure that we're continuing to provide these opportunities for teachers to be able to go through a program like that, but also to be able to be compensated for that and earn a bonus. Because I think what you're getting in a course like this and then providing to the students, I mean, the $3,000 pays for itself. I mean, that's a no-brainer to be able to do that. We are going to continue to ask for this money in the budget. I think that we did not get it as recurring initially. I think we're going to try to get it as recurring going forward. Now, what I think will end up happening as we go through this for 2-3 years, we probably will see a decline because I think a lot of the teachers will have gotten it, which is great. And so maybe down the line you update it, you can do some other continuing stuff. But we're committed to keeping this going because I think the results have been very positive. The feedback has been really positive, and I know that this will really, really benefit the students. We can sit there and talk about standards, and it's great, but if you have a very knowledgeable, passionate teacher teaching the students, that's going to make all the difference. So I want to thank everyone that's been involved with this. We're going to hear from our Education Commissioner, Manny Diaz, and then 2 of the teachers that have gone through it. So Manny, where are you? Are you going to come up here? And okay, come on up.
First of all, Governor, thank you for your leadership on this, because this program is the most significant education civics initiative in the country. And having a Governor DeSantis, who understands the importance of civics education, not just in the academic realm, but every fabric of American life, the initial purpose of public education was to create a populace that was educated enough to sustain the republic. And unfortunately, over time, for one reason or another, we've lost the connection with those founding documents, with the thoughts of the American experiment, of what we are living through, of our Constitution, and the reason so many people come to this country looking for freedom. And unfortunately, we've seen in recent years that sometimes the people that come here from other countries realize that more than folks who have been here for multiple generations. I can tell you that story happens in my family. My parents left Cuba in the 1960s fleeing communism. I was fortunate to be born in this country. But I never forget that, because I understand what my family went through and what the cost of freedom, and the fact that many times we take it for granted. So having the focus on this, our governor putting this up front. I taught history in high school, I taught government, and having a tool like this would have been so incredible, even without the bonus, Governor. It would have been just so incredible to have the tools to be able to use this, because as we listen to the teachers, every day as you're teaching, you also learn more and more and look deeper into these topics that are so important. As the governor mentioned, 20,000 educators are participating in this and are going to get the stipend. The governor has led on pushing forward to continue this money going forward and get it to be recurring, so we can continue to educate all of our teachers, regardless of their certificate, regardless of what subject area they teach, because this civics is so important that it has to be embedded across our curriculum. It is our American way of life. And so, like the governor mentioned, this nation-leading initiative has 39 subject expert and civic scholars and a minimum of 50 contact hours spread about 5 training video modules. And so we will continue to go forward with this. The reception, the feedback from the teachers, obviously the waiting list indicates how great this product is. So again, I just want to thank Governor DeSantis for his leadership on this, and for Florida continuing to be #1 in the nation, not just in education overall, in civics education. And to the point where the governor mentioned the debate initiative that we're pushing to have in all 67 counties. Governor, we have interest from other states who are already coming to compete in this national championship and want to partner up with our initiative to create something similar in their state. So it's having an effect not only in our state, but across our nation that is so needed. Thank you, Governor.
Wait up here, man. Wait here. All right, so Michael Taft, civics teacher from Green Cove Junior High, and then Brittany Bishop. You guys both come up and go ahead. Floor is yours. Come on.
Okay, they said I only have about 2 or 3 minutes, so someone please cut me off in an hour or so. Okay, civics education is something that we've been doing since basically our birth. And the founding fathers had it right when they created this great experiment called America. They gave us a frame, like a picture frame of a puzzle. And they put the frame together for us, and they asked us, their posterity, to fill in the rest of the pieces, to work from the outside in, to make this great thing called America. Governor DeSantis said it right. We are in a civics crisis, basically, in this country because of the divisions that we have, and I see it personally based upon parties. George Washington warned of this in his farewell address, that political parties would be the division of this country. Now, saying that, this Civics Seal of Excellence course, I strongly endorse, because Florida has also given us a framework to push this civics education. The way I see America today is taking that same puzzle and they're putting the pieces like starting in the middle and working their way out. And it doesn't work. It's more difficult. So Florida, with this here, and I think I put more than 50 hours into this course, I would say somewhere close to 100, because I kept going back and looking at the videos, learning and learning from these esteemed colleagues from around the country, talking about this thing called civics, this thing, and they harped on this thing called citizenship. And what does it really mean to be a citizen? And I've taken a lot of new ideas based upon this course back to my classroom. Abraham Lincoln, this is actually going in my classroom next year. This golden apple with a silver frame around it. And I'm going to provoke discussion based upon a an apple and a picture. What does it mean? And Abraham Lincoln said it this way. He said that the Declaration of Independence, these are the things that government is meant for, to fight for, to protect our inalienable rights of life, liberty, and my pursuit of happiness. That is the entire purpose of government. But the question is, how do you do it? It is the Constitution. So the picture is not made for the frame is made for the picture. And I'm going to carry that into my classroom next year to instill this thing called citizenship. It's a beautiful analogy that Abraham Lincoln gave, and I'm also happy for the endorsement, by the way. However, I am going to endorse this thing, and I will be the person carrying the flag for Civic Seal of Excellence out at the front line, because I think every teacher in the state of Florida should be doing this course. They will learn so much about what it really means to be a citizen of this country. And I also agree with the governor and the commissioner that probably within the next year or so, 49 other states will be begging for this course.
To share my remarks on this course, I just have to say it is truly a one-of-a-kind course. They took a lot of time and a lot of effort to put it together. It pulls so many primary and secondary sources for additional reading materials for us that can be turned around and used within the classroom. I have already actually started doing so. Also, it's innovative, it's inspiring, and incredibly educational, not just for our students, but for us as teachers, as lifelong learners. And it's a way for us to, no matter what, encourage our students to step up, do the right thing, and be the right citizen within the community. And that's what it's all about, the citizenship side of it. So if I can say anything, I encourage any teacher, it doesn't matter what subject you teach, but take the course. Because every day when you're in that school, when you're not in that school, when you're in your community, you step up and you have the right, you have the way, you have the will to make an impact in a child's life and teach them the proper way to be a citizen. And this course is going to help you with that. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're excited that teachers have been able to benefit from this, and we're even more excited to be able to issue the bonuses. It's really important. I think when the Constitution was created, after they hammered it out in Philadelphia, and it was like 55 delegates. It was a lot of things were up in the air. There was a lot of times they thought it was going to fail, had to make some compromises, and they end up with a document that everyone was either happy with or at least could live with. And so after they sign it, Benjamin Franklin's walking out on the streets of Philadelphia. He's stopped by a woman who said, "Dr. Franklin, what have you given us, a republic or a monarchy?" And he said, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it." They never thought that this was something that could run on autopilot. They understood, having studied history and having studied the history of every republic in the history of the world, they understood that all those experiments had failed up to the point of America. And so they were really going against the tide of history. They were really trying to challenge the idea that people were forever destined to live under various forms of despotism. But they knew it wouldn't be easy, and they knew that it required citizenry that really appreciated the values of the country and were willing to work hard to uphold that. And we've had that for so many times in our history, time and again, people that have fought in wars and have done other great things. Now, really, we're just calling upon all of our students to be able to engage in this and to be able to leave our school system with a foundation so that, yes, a republic that we can keep. And I look forward to that happening. All right, we're going to have these teachers come up. So we have a few of the Clay County teachers who will receive the $3,000 bonus as part of receiving the Civic Seal of Excellence. So Commissioner Diaz, you call the names and I'll present them with the check.
All right, Governor. We have first Michael Taft. Brittany Bishop. Billy Ann Lentz. Karen McCarthy. Benita Pelzer. Linda Shelby. And Penny Turner.
Well, congratulations, and can they do a photo with all them right there? Do we got that? We got it? All right. In the record book, congratulations. You guys want to get in? Okay. You gonna get in? Okay, all right. Are they taking? Okay, right back there. You got it? All right. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And there's many more where those checks came from, so we're going to have a lot of teachers getting checks in the very near future, and of course there's many more in the hopper, so we look forward to them completing the program. Okay, questions?
Sure, you can use that.
Governor, this is a question either for you or Commissioner Diaz, but there was a rule proposed, the Board of Education will be voting on it next month, would expand the ban on classroom instruction on gender identity and sexual orientation all the way through 12th grade. The legislature is looking at going up through 8th. Why is the Department of Education going that far? And, you know, if you could just sort of explain why you're moving in that direction.
What you're really looking at in the rule is to avoid the confusion and provide clarity for teachers on the instruction. There's a bill going through the legislature, like you said, but this rule basically says that we're sticking to the standards, and when you're talking about K through 12 instruction, all the way through 12th grade, these standards don't incorporate gender ideology or any of these theories in math, social studies, reading, or anything else. We preserve the health standards, and that makes it clear for teachers what it is, because there are a lot of questions about age appropriate. Well, this clarifies it for everyone.
Good morning. We're hearing concerns that the defamation bills that you support, Governor, would chill free speech, particularly for people on social media, bloggers, and people at public meetings, and encourage frivolous lawsuits. So how would your administration keep that from happening?
Well, I think what the bill is doing now is basically saying that if somebody is defamed, so someone publishes or says something, this is pretty much going to be written. They publish something that defames you, so it's false, that if they're using anonymous sources, then that can be a presumption that that was done with malice. Because if not, then there's no way you could ever have a defamation action. I think what's happened is, particularly corporate media outlets have relied on anonymous sources to smear people. And I just think that that's something that is fundamentally wrong. And so, again, these are false statements of fact that defame people. The question is, if you bring a suit, how are you able to show that that was malicious? And I think the fact that it was anonymous could be a presumption that that's the case. And so I don't think it's going to cause much of a difference in terms of free speech. I do think it may cause some people to not want to put out things that are false, that are smearing somebody's reputation. And I think people can make a judgment about how they view that. But I think to have a standard that's impossible to meet for people, particularly people who are considered public figures who aren't even in office, or just maybe get involved in some, a school board meeting or something. I think that'll be good.
Good morning. My name is Will Brown. I'm with WJCT News. This question is for Commissioner Diaz. There's across the state, there's a teacher shortage. We're here today discussing civics education. There are statewide initiatives about what should be taught in schools. Are you concerned about recruiting teachers with where we are as a state, and what can the Department of Education do to try and recruit teachers to the field, considering there is a shortage at the moment?
Well, we start, first of all, with the leadership of Governor DeSantis in investing now, asking the legislature to up the teacher salary allocation to $1 billion, which has put us at $3 billion over the 3-year period where the governor has started this initiative that never existed before. We've also launched a campaign with our foundation at the Department of Education to highlight the pathways in Florida, teaching in Florida, because we have, thanks to the governor's leadership, many people coming to our state, including teachers that want to teach here. But when we look at the overall numbers and talk about shortages, we have to talk about across the employment sector, there's been a need for employees. And if you look at the numbers at the beginning of the school year, that count showed us at 1.3 openings per school, which, while we'd rather it be 0, is not an alarming number. Now, we continue to look for teachers. This is not a general blanket situation. You have to look at where you need those teachers, because just because you're having more teachers get certificates doesn't mean they're in the areas of need for a particular county like Clay County. So we continue to push forward. The governor has rolled out proposals to streamline certification, to create an apprenticeship program. So we are pushing on all cylinders to provide those opportunities and to have our districts have access to those teachers.
And, there's teacher shortage nationwide. Our per capita vacancies is less than the majority of states, and substantially so in some cases. And so we really believe, focusing how we've done in teacher compensation, and what we do is we've created an item in the budget, because the money comes down to the school districts and then they use it, and some do a good job, some may not do as good a job. But you can sit there and increase education funding. Doesn't mean it's going to teachers. And so we've said, hey, here's $800 million last year. This year it'll be $1 billion. It's got to go to teacher salaries. That's it. So use it or lose it. And that's been good. And then a lot of these other programs we're doing, I think, has been good. So the fact that I think we're have fewer per capita vacancies than the majority of other states indicates that some of these things are working, and we're going to continue to find other ways to have good people come in. Yes, one more.
Governor, the Florida chapter of the NAACP voted yesterday to ask the national branch to issue a travel advisory for Black Americans, advising them not to come into Florida over the AP African American history controversy.
What a joke.
As well as the DEI.
What a joke. Yeah, we'll see how effective that is. Just remember, during COVID, these people would be on CNN, all this stuff, slamming Florida, saying we were so bad, don't go to Florida. And then they would end up being spotted on the beach somewhere, vacationing in Florida. So this is just ridiculous. I mean, it's ridiculous, and we're proud to be leading the nation in tourism. I think we've led it for many years in a row now. And I think we've had as good a year as we've ever had. 22 was fantastic. 21 was incredible. I mean, I remember 2021, all the people coming down. You couldn't go on vacation to a lot of other states in this country and be treated like a normal human being. But in Florida, people knew, and the plane would land, they'd get off, and they'd look, and they'd like, oh my gosh, this is like normal America again. Like, we really like it. So we had huge numbers of people coming, and it was really, really good. And so I think that's going to continue. And I think that, look, this is part of the reason why, our country, it goes through all these, we get involved in these stupid fights. This is a stunt to try to do that. It's a pure stunt. And fine, if you want to waste your time on a stunt, that's fine. Look, but I'm not wasting my time on your stunts, okay? I'm going to make sure that we're getting things done here. And we're going to continue to make this state a great state. Thanks, everybody. God bless you all. We'll see ya. Where do I go? This way?